Hello and welcome to the CircuitPython weekly meeting for April 15th, 2019. My name is Scott. I go by Tan Newt online. I'm the project lead for CircuitPython. I'm paid by Adafruit to work full-time on the project. And CircuitPython is a chance for people to... CircuitPython's goal is to make it easy for people to program on hardware devices. This is our weekly meeting. It happens at Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, or thereabouts. Everybody is welcome to join and either participate or not participate. If you're just listening in, let us know you're lurking, just like Jason P. has. We'll note it in the docs, and we'll just skip over you when we do our round robins. This meeting happens in 5 parts. We do community news, state of CircuitPython, which I forgot to grab. So if somebody could grab that, that would be awesome. And then we do hug reports and status updates as round robins. So I'll start as an example, and then we'll go through the list of folks who are not lurking in the voice chat. And then lastly, we'll do In the Weeds, which is a general catch-all for discussion topics that people have. So if you have topics for that In the Weeds section anytime throughout the meeting, just pop it in the text channel, so the CircuitPython text channel, and we'll add it, or just add it directly to the notes doc, which we've shared out as well. That's the meeting. It is being recorded, so be aware that if you're in the meeting, both in the text channel or the in the voice channel, that we are recording it because we post it to YouTube, which then gets pushed out to podcast services, and I usually post it on Diode Zone as well. And I think I forgot to tell you how to do it. The meeting is run through Discord, which is a chat program, and you can join our particular server with the URL adafru.it/discord. So join us there. We're in the text channel all week, so if you have questions, that's where to find us. Thank you to whomever put the state of CircuitPython in. I really appreciate it. And with that, we'll go to our first section, community news.
All right. Thanks so much, Scott. I'll take the blame for the slightly later start. Lady Enid and I had construction in our apartment, so we got in a couple minutes late, and that made the first meeting a little bit late, and this meeting a little bit late. But we're all here now together.
Yay.
So yeah. So first up in community news, Code Academy. We worked on this since October. This is the first learning hardware programming with CircuitPython course. They have about 45 million people, and they teach people coding. A lot of people I know have told me, oh, I got my start coding when I want to learn to code by a Code Academy course or something. So we work with them. For all the advanced folks that are probably on this particular meeting, you don't need this, but you probably get asked a lot, where can I learn CircuitPython or Python on hardware or whatever. So check it out, and we'll be doing some promos with them and more. This is the first of maybe many courses. We'll see how it works out. Next up, downloads are available from circuitpython.org. This weekend, hug reports, everyone who helps me out with this stuff, updated a lot of the boards that are there. So we now have 53 boards that are visible, and that means we have enough information. The updates were the Kicksat Sprite by Max Holiday. That's a CircuitPython device that can go to space. Metro M4 Airlift, the Gemma M0 PyCon. We're going to put all the information for that previous product that was co-branded with PyCon, the Circuit Playground Express DigiKey edition and 4H edition. So we want your boards. If you have a board, you can stop in Discord, and I think that's the best place to ask questions. And I think we're going to have a little spot later if people are looking to get their boards in, what are the things they need to do. It's pretty easy. A lot of folks have got them in so far. And then we have a Blinka style guide preview. So pretty much you can do almost whatever you want with Blinka in the community, as long as you just stick to some guidelines. Like, please don't sell Blinka, have Blinka do bad things. You can put it on, just email us. Some people have, I think, actually Deshipu made a really cool Blinka CircuitPython running board, and that was totally cool. And as long as no one's doing anything mean or terrible to Blinka, we say okay to most everything. So check out the guidelines and more. We have all the art. And then last enough, speaking of Tishipu, I have a hug report because I got to go. Thanks for making all these delightful games on the PyGamer. They're cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the community news this week.
Awesome. Thank you, Phil.
Okay, bye.
Bye. um, go back to running Adafruit. All right, that's the first section, community news. Phil runs it every week, so thank you, Phil. Next, we'll do State of CircuitPython, which is a statistic view of the health of the project. It's numbers that we like to track and generally keep track of to know where we're at. And I will read the overview and then go over the core, and then we'll kick it over to Kattni for the libraries. So overall, we had 22 pull requests merge, which is becoming standard, which is awesome. So we're pretty in the 20s usually now, which is really cool to see the project grow and grow. We had 13 different authors, which I think is actually more than we typically do. So I'll just call out Prof. Brady, Hexthat, Kevin J. Walters, DJ M. Britt, Maholi, and Mike Renfro as new folks that are in the authors list. Again, thank you to all the authors. And then we had 7 reviewers. So thanks again to all those reviewers. That's more than we typically have, I feel like. So thank you to everybody who does reviews. It's a great way to get started contributing, actually, is just take a look at some code, make sure it makes sense, and then test it if you can, and let us know that you did. And that's a review. And it's super helpful. So that's where we are PR wise, which is pull request. Issues wise, we had 11 closed issues by 7 people and 12 opens by 10 people. So again, we're very kind of net neutral on issues. And then overall, I would say, like we've been saying the last few weeks, we're very, very, very close to getting to release candidate. We did beta 7 on Friday, and hopefully that's the last release candidate. Maybe we'll do a beta 8 just because we're adding a few things here or there. But really, really close. Our hope is to have kind of the 4.0 out the door and CircuitPython.org all set up for PyCon, which is just over 2 weeks away. So really coming down to the wire, and really appreciate anybody who's testing and debugging issues with beta 7 or even newer. So let us know if you find issues. That's where we're at overall. I'll go over the core. So this is just the core C code that that is the CircuitPython UF2 that you would download. We had 9 pull requests merged from 4 different authors. Myself, Maholi, Deshipu, and Lady Ada. 2 reviewers, myself and Dan. We have 8 open pull requests. This is as of last night, so this number might be plus or minus 1 or 2. We've been getting lots of contributions and pulling them in and stuff like that, so that it goes by pretty quick. Issues wise, we had 5 closed issues by 3 people and 5 open by 5 people, and so we're net 0, which is great. I have a feeling what's going to happen is we're going to kind of get lower and lower as we get to 4.0, and then the moment we're past 4.0, we're going to I think we need to spend some time taking a look at issues and reclassifying and maybe closing some, but also adding a lot of others. So right now we have a total of 162 open issues. There's a link in the notes doc if you want to take a look at what those are. We have 6 active milestones. This is kind of how we track the prioritization of the issues that we've got. The 2 most important in my mind right now are the 4.0 Bluetooth milestone, which has 4 open issues. This is basically what that prevents us from getting to the point of a stable or a release candidate release, is having open issues on 4.0. And then we also have 7 issues that have not been assigned a milestone. So those could be ones that should be applied to 4.0, and we don't know. So we should definitely take a look at that. Downloads-wise, we've got stats here for 3.1.2 and 4.0 Beta 7, which only came out on Friday. It's really interesting to see that PyPortal gets a lot of beta downloads. So the PyPortal folks are very savvy in getting the latest and greatest. And then for 3.1.2, we're 11,620 total downloads, which it's been a long time out, so it's just continues to chug along. Downloads by language, check it out in the notes if you're interested. And that's downloads, and let's go to Kattni for libraries.
Thanks, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So we had in the libraries 13 pull requests merged by 9 authors. And in that are most of the new people that you called out, Prof. Brady, Hexstat, Kevin J. Walters, DJ M. Britt, and Mike Renfro. We had 6 reviewers, which is also excellent, especially when we're talking about 9 authors to 6 reviewers. Thank you to everybody who's doing reviews, Scott, Melissa, Brent, Lady Ada, myself, and Deshipu. We have 25 open pull requests. Some of these are long term. Some of them are definitely more recent. There has been um, a lot of contribution to the libraries lately, which is excellent. So some of these are definitely things that you could take a look at, possibly test the code. Even reviewing for typos is a way to contribute
Mm-hmm.
because inevitably we miss things. So even if you think you don't understand the code, sometimes it's worth taking a look and perhaps suggesting a change in a doc string or something to that effect, because all of that sort of contribution is helpful. We had 6 issues closed by 4 people and 7 opened by 6 people, so we are also sort of um, net neutral. We have 101 open issues. There's a list of all of these in the notes. And then as well is a list of repo specific issues, which are not all individually listed. But the plan is that we are working on circuitpython.org/libraries, and all of this information will be available through a link on that page within hopefully the next 2 weeks. And then the plan is actually to shorten up the list of stuff in the notes so that the notes are not quite so long. And it should be a little bit easier to navigate and easier to get to a point where you're able to contribute. So that is where we are at with the libraries.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katney. Good job getting more and more contributors. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been great. The PRs keep coming in, and it's always names I don't recognize, which is always excellent.
Right? That's so cool. Um, all right. Let's move on to Hug Reports. That was kind of a preview with that. Thank you to Katney. Hug Reports is a chance for you to say thank you to people for the work that they've been doing since we've had a chance to last time. Um, we do this as a round robin. So the way it works is I will start and then we'll go alphabetically through the list of folks who are in the voice chat. If you're unable to make the meeting, you're always welcome to drop them in the notes and let us know you won't make the meeting. I'll read those off in order. And then if you're lurking, so you don't want to speak or you're not available, just let us know and we'll skip over you during the round robin. You have a third option as well, which is if you're text only, you can type in as we call you and I'll read it off as well. And with that, I will take a time code for myself and read off my stuff. First and foremost, I wanted to say thank you to Maker Melissa for continuing to make displays better and better, and specifically for the joystick Featherwing work as well, because the Featherwing library, I think, is one of those top level, very important libraries, and it's awesome to see Melissa owning that work and really improving things. Related to that, Deshipu did some reviews for Melissa, so I wanted to thank Deshipu for those, along with all of the really leading edge game API feedback and changes that Deshipu is doing. So thank you, Radomir, for those. I wanted to thank Dan for the bootloader stuff. There's a couple issues that cropped up with Mojave and some itsy bitsies that shipped, and Dan took those on and figured those out and fixed them. The bootloader is kind of the critical piece. Like without the bootloader, you can't really have CircuitPython. So Dan, thank you for prioritizing that and fixing it. And then lastly, I wanted to thank Kyle Brown, who is KBD244, I believe, on GitHub and Discord. They do mechanical keyboard CircuitPython stuff, and so I wanted to just say thank you to Kyle for all of the testing of the USB HID side of CircuitPython and filing issues when you find them. So thank you for them. I'm going to read off I'll reiterate from Adafruit that hug report to Adafruit is Phil Tyrone from Adafruit. Thank you to Deshipu for making so many cute games. And then we'll go on to Brent.
2 Hug reports this week. One is to Katney for work on PyCon. I'm really excited. Like, really excited. And then my other one is to Jerry for testing out the CircuitPython Philips Hue library really quickly.
Nice. All right. Thanks, Brent. Carter. Lurking, but hug to Dan H for forum support and the UF2/MacFix. Awesome. And Charles is lurking, so we'll go to Dan.
Hi, hold on a second.
No worries.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. So I want to thank Mike Barella and DeBroxel for both finding out, documenting carefully some Windows 10 enumeration issues, which we're going to have to we'd like to try to figure out before 4.0 ships. Hexthat has been very active on Discord and also has been contributed a Chinese pinyin translation, which is fantastic, and is working on a universal font, and it's just great. It's great to have a Chinese translation. Thanks to Deshipu for testing all kinds of things and submitting all kinds of PRs in rapid succession, because he's doing real world things, and it's really great to have somebody using our stuff immediately. And thanks to you, Scott, for fixing all kinds of bugs again for 4.0 in the past weeks, including the last week.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Dan. All right, let's go to Deshipu.
Okay, so thank you to Philip for sending me the Pi badge thing to play with. Thank you to Lady Ada for helping me actually figure out how to use the buttons on it and so on. And thank you to Scott for reviewing my patches and suggesting really great improvements for them. So that's it.
Sweet. Thank you. All right, let's go to Drew.
Yeah, thanks to Lady Ada for reviewing a couple of pull requests I had to fix some issues with SPI on the BeagleBone and Pocket Beagle.
Nice. All right, thank you, Drew. Okay, let's go to Jerry.
Yeah, first, it's a big group hug and congratulations to everybody on Beta 7. It's really working well. And Brent for the Hue controller demo. That was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Okay, Katney.
All right, so I have a hug for Maker Melissa for talking through some PyCon prep stuff with me and providing input on a code issue I was having. To Carter for some code discussion over the weekend. Thank you for that. To Dan for a super helpful discussion over the last week or so. And a group hug to all of our library and CircuitPython contributors. Thank you for being a part of this. Without you, we would just be writing code. And instead, we have created an amazing community. And just the amount of contribution has continued to rise. And that is something that I think is super important to everything we do. So thank you very much for that.
Sweet. All right. Thanks, Katney. Maker Melissa.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks to Hexthat for all your help with the mini color TFT plus joystick featherwing library and support. Thanks to our hug to Prof. Brady for sticking with me on the character LCD pull request. A hug to Deshipu for your very helpful suggestions and your reviews. Hug to Katney for your continued preparation for PyCon. I'm really excited about that. And a hug to you, Tan and Dan, for getting rid of those file system and memory bugs and getting a fairly stable Beta 7 out.
All right. I'll take fairly stable. Awesome.
It's better than not stable.
It's very, yeah. Yeah, we had a couple rough ones there, didn't we?
Yeah.
Beta 4 in particular, I think, was the one that we did Beta 5. Dan did it in like 2 days or something.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad we're going the right direction, Melissa.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to Pink Vampire.
I'm not very familiar with the CircuitPython, so for me it's kind of the first time I can engage with you guys, and all I can say is thank you for making the platform more accessible for people like me that's not very into programming. I'm more kind of hands-on on milling machine and lathe and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm a pretty beginner in programming.
No problem. Awesome. Thank you, Pink Vampire.
Thank you.
All right. Sedacious.
I just want to say thanks to Drew and Oshpark for getting me boards promptly, as usual, and also to who else? Someone helped me with something, and I forgot. I wrote it down.
Me for CP32 testing?
That's it. Yes.
That's what the notes say.
Yeah, good. Someone can find it. Yeah, so taking care of that. Apologies in advance for all the problems you're likely to find, and hopefully it's good enough where we can maybe get a new rev out before PyCon.
That's ambitious.
Well, thanks to Oshpark turning around boards very quickly, it's possible.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for now. Thanks for everybody else for just being an awesome community, and yeah,
cool.
That's it.
Thanks, Sedacious. Last but not least, we have Summersoft, who says, just a group hug this week. No problem, we like group hugs. All right, thank you, everybody. I don't think we missed anybody who was gone. So that's it for hug reports. Let's go on to status updates. Status updates are a chance for everybody to fill us in on what they've been working on. It's a way for us to stay on the same page and give tips and tricks and pointers to folks if they're working on something that you may have worked on in the past. So a lot of people do it in terms of like what you've been doing in the last week and what you plan on doing this week. Some people are more formal than others about that. So just like last time, if you're lurking, let us know. If you're text only, let us know. And if you're unable to make the meeting, feel free to drop it in the notes and I'll read it off. And with that, I will start. Take a time code for myself. Lots of bug squishing. I did a number of different display argument validation changes in the last week, along with I fixed an issue with checking for the shared SPI bus and sharing that with displays. There was some wrong logic there that I fixed, manifested in like straight up crashes. So those are all in beta 7 and you should see some improvements there. I added board alias support. I don't know if folks have seen this, but now that we have the website, we can actually have even more downloads. So we had like over 600 assets on beta 7. And that's because for board aliases, what we're doing is we're generating a new set of binaries for a board that's actually identical, but it looks different. So we have, like, for example, the Circuit Playground 4H version, which is green with the 4H logo. And we have the upcoming DigiKey PyCon 2019 version of the Circuit Playground that's red. But electrically, they're all the same. So we added aliasing so that we could have separate downloads, so we could track downloads separately, which is the way that we sort downloads on CircuitPython.org. So I didn't want to have like all three variants up at the top where the most popular version is. So they all get sorted on the page there. And that just is done literally by copying the file and renaming it and then uploading it. So I added that. I took the great work that Hexthat had done to get the Chinese pinyin version going, and we're out of space on a lot of builds. And so I had to go in and find space for the Chinese pinyin stuff in a number of different ways for different boards. So I've got some techniques down. I think I'm going to have to do another pass of that this week. I think Deshipu has a PR that's kind of blocked on that. So I'll take that over. And...
Yeah, so that PR also makes the Polish translations smaller, so that could help a little bit too.
Okay. Yeah, I think Polish for a while was the biggest translation, but now I think Chinese pinyin is the biggest. So once we have the one, then it's okay. But
and labels to the issues, especially if it should be fixed for 4.0. This is important because we're trying to use that milestone as the indicator for a release candidate. And if we've got loose issues that should be fixed and aren't in there, we may miss them, or it actually adds like extra work for us to continually go through and find them. So please add those milestones and labels to any issues that you file. And if you can't, let one of us know so we can. Let's groom our issues in the next few weeks for PyCon sprints. Expect lots of beginners. So we are going to be sprinting possibly for 4 days. And we will definitely have library issues available. However, it would be amazing if we could get some CircuitPython issues fixed up as well. And ideally, if we could get the good first issue label onto issues that we think would be applicable to it, it's an easy way for us to filter that and then have that available for the sprint. So if that's something that you are interested in helping out with, let us know and we can talk through it to help figure out what will be best for beginners. And Scott will be speaking about CircuitPython at the Python Language Summit before the main event, which is amazing. He'll be discussing the history of CircuitPython. So congratulations on getting accepted for that. And with that, let's go to Brent.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm just going to do text only right now because I'm in the middle of something. So.
Okay. I'll read off, Brent. Thanks for covering for Katney. For those of you who don't know, I have a cat who is epileptic, so he just had a little bit of a seizure, so he's all right now. But he hisses, and you don't want to hear that. You might hear a little bit on the recording, though. I muted the wrong mic for a little bit there. Anyway, Brent says, last week published PyPortal LifeX light controller guide, published the CircuitPython Hue, a module for simple control of Philips Hue lights, and some CircuitPython Adafruit IO PRs. There's a link to the Adafruit IO library in the polls. One is added an API coverage test suite to Adafruit IO CircuitPython to test against API or core library changes, and a bug fix for HTTP requests not being closed correctly. And then also close out a few CircuitPython MCP3XX issues this morning. The rest of the week, finish up PyPortal Philips Hue controller, RFM hacking on a 915 megahertz weather station. Want to get it working with RFM 69. Ran into some issues since the weather station returns 88 bytes. The RFM 69 can only process under 88 bytes at a time. Unsure if I'll get it working with CircuitPython. I'd like to, though. And lastly, Brent's going to start the Adafruit IO Basics CircuitPython guide supporting the ESP32 SPI and Adafruit IO CircuitPython. All right, and Carter is lurking, so we'll go to Charles.
Well, I'm starting another little project in reference to some of my musical instruments, and that is to make a mini keyboard with basically 32 keys on it, hopefully.
Cool.
And an issue that I spoke about last week was accessing the interrupt registers on the 23 MCP 23017.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to wire them to a pins on the pins, and then just pull the pins every once in a while, pass through the main loop.
Nice.
Until you guys figure out how to get interrupts working.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Charles. All right, let's go to Dan.
Okay, so as we talked about, we're continuing to fix various 4.0 bugs. I fixed something where the background task was calling itself recursively, which caused like the 52840 to be really slow in certain circumstances. As we mentioned, there was a UF2 bootloader problem with the latest version of macOS Mojave, and if you were using MakeCode, and there was a MakeCode program on the board, then it would not enumerate anymore. It wouldn't connect via USB once you'd upgraded certain Macs to 10.14.4. So Microsoft figured this out, and they fixed it, and we pulled their change, and we made a new version of the bootloader. And since this is a pretty serious problem, especially like if you only have one machine, we're going to be proactive and try to make sure that people can know to update their bootloaders right away. It doesn't happen for all Macs, not so much for older ones, but I think for like certain 2018 Macs, it can be a problem. And it's only if you're writing MakeCode. But if you have a MakeCode program, you're kind of dead in the water until you get a different machine to load to update the bootloader on. And then another problem we had was that some boards, notably some itsy bitsy M4 boards, had some programming problems from the factory. We're not really sure how that happened, but it caused their fuse settings, these are not really fuses in the sense of burning out, but they're like kind of permanent settings on the board. And one of them is called a watchdog timer. And so inadvertently, the watchdog timer was turned on among a lot of other things. And it caused, it would cause the board to reset after 30 seconds. Like it would work normally for 30 seconds and then reset. So this was confusing for a while until we figured it out. And so we've put some repair code in the bootloader so that if it discovers that the board has wonky fuse settings, it will reset them to reasonable values. And it's basically done in a way so that if you've made these changes yourself, it won't detect that. But if the fuses have been set to all ones, which seems to be the problem, then it'll reset them to normal values. So there's a new set of bootloaders. You don't need to upgrade you probably want to, unless you have a Mac, in which you really, really should probably. So we're going to write up something. I'm going to write up something for the Learn guides for that. And also I'm going to investigate these Windows 10 USB problems that have showed up in the latest CircuitPython Beta 7. And also there's some problem with the display brightness increasing and decreasing, and now is flickering due to some other PWM change that I made a week or two ago. So that needs to be fixed also, because it makes the backlight looks really strange when you're trying to do smooth fade outs and fade ins.
Right.
Okay.
I was wondering if that was a math problem.
It's not a math problem in the CircuitPython code, I think.
Yeah.
But it has to do, it like made PWM out be smoother for some things, but not others. I mean, it might be something we may need to like, I don't know. It seems to make some PWM pulses abnormally long or something like that.
Interesting.
So I think it solved some audio glitching problems, but it makes the audio sound nicer, but it makes the display be bright all of a sudden. So these may be conflicting goals. We'll have to see what we're going to do about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, maybe we're accidentally using the same timer for two things. That'd be bad. All right, let's go on to Dishipu.
Okay, so I made that Gamepad shift library for PyBatch to have convenient access to the buttons that have been pressed and to buffer them, so that you don't have to poll all the time.
Right.
And then I ported the stage library that is used on Microgame for all those games to use underlying functions from display.io. This way you can use it together with display.io and have display.io display all the console messages and error messages and so on.
Nice.
At the same time as you use Sage for the games. I did that because display.io right now is too slow for games.
Right.
Because it updates the whole screen every time. And and because I already had some games written for it. So that all works. And next, I still need to get my feet wet with DMA and try running the state library with DMA transfer and double buffering. We will see how that works. It won't probably speed it up much, but on the SAMD21, and every little bit counts. So
Right.
I hope to at least get something from that.
Sweet. Thanks for pushing the bounds on those. All right, let's go to Drew.
Yeah, I was for Adafruit Blink, I was looking at why SPI wasn't working with the Pocket Beagle, and then discovered that there was a regression with the SPI support for the BeagleBone Black, and it's now working. I had 2 pull requests that got merged in, so now for the BeagleBone Black and the Pocket Beagle, SPI is working again. So have tested it out with OLED, SSD 1306 OLED, and the BME 280. Temperature sensor. So, and the person that created the original or added the support for the Pocket Beagle and Blinka, Stefan Kruger, waiting for him to verify if it works for him as well, and then we'll be able to close that out and have full support for the Pocket Beagle.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Drew. Excited to see it on the BeagleBone. Okay, Ivan and Jason are lurking, so we'll go to Jerry.
Yeah, so spent a bunch of time updating boards to beta 7 and trying things, and so far it's been working really well for me. And then spent a lot of time this week and the last couple of weeks and trying to get this thing going. A friend of mine and I are working on what we call the Deer Deterrent device, the DDD, for to protect his garden. And so it uses an RFM9X radio on an right now I'm using just the LoRa M0 board. Out in the field, and then it talks to a Raspberry Pi base station using one of the radio bonnets, and allows either remote control from the base station, or it does some sensor, has a PIR sensor on it to look for large things that move around. And its intent is to scare them off. Right now we're using just a noisy alarm, and that worked last night for the first time. He's able to scare a deer away.
Nice.
But the next big event is he's ordered one of the little waving man things, those obnoxious little things they put out in front of gas stations that blow up and wave around. So we're going to try and deploy one of those. And so I'll hopefully have some pictures next week.
That would be awesome.
And then their goal is to then make it all controllable via AIO, so he can take care of it when he's traveling and still predict the garden. So we'll let you know. And then I just got my airlifts, so I'm looking forward to getting those online and trying them out.
Sweet. Glad to hear all the projects, Jerry.
Thanks.
All right, Katney.
Okay, so last week finished the AD8495 guide, awaiting final moderation on that. Completed the requested sections of the ESP32 SPI guide. Lady Ada will actually be finishing that up because apparently it's just going to be a lot of stuff from other guides. So she's got her plans for that. Created the Fritzing objects for the ESP32 SPI breakout, the ESP32 airlift breakout. Attempted to create Fritzing objects for the monochrome e-ink displays and ran into issues, so that didn't get finished. Started the rework of the e-ink guide to include usage of all e-ink form factors and types. So it's got different so where you're running through the code, it has the init for each of the displays, because a lot of them have different chipsets. There's, I want to say, 6 different chips on 9 or 10 different e-ink displays. So it has all of the setup there, so now you can actually use the guide to run through with any of your displays. Updated the simple test on the EPD library to include all the displays, and rearranged the pins for use on more microcontrollers. It was Metro specific, and they don't need more pins than can be used on a Feather or an Itsy Bitsy, so it's now set up on pins that can be used on any of those boards. And worked some more on the PyCon example content. So this week, sort the Fritzing objects for the mono e-ink displays and complete those. I will be getting help from Phil B on that because it is a weird issue. I'm going to be doing the Fritzing object for another thing called an e-ink friend, which is designed to allow, it's a breakout that lets you hook up your own e-ink display. So if you've got one that you want to have free hanging, or you just have a bare e-ink display, you can connect that up. I'm going to finish the rework of the EPD guide, including Dan's request mentioning that the font 8x5.bin is required to use with the EPD library. I ran into that. It didn't occur to me that it wasn't mentioned. This was brought up in a forum post, that it's not mentioned where it is or how to get it and that sort of thing. So the guide will be updated to include that as well. I'll be deprecating an old Python library guide. And then PyCon. So I want to this week get the PR in for the PyCon open spaces content. I would definitely love to have help testing this. There are a lot of examples. They're all very simple, but there are a lot of them. So anybody who's interested in helping out with that, please let me know. And I can tag you on the PR, because ideally I would like to have everything tested before we dump it in there, or inevitably when we get there, we're going to run into a problem. Continued prep for PyCon, both in terms of code and in terms of actually starting to get all of the physical accoutrement that I will be bringing organized into a way that is tenable for transport and for getting around the conference. And then I apparently started typing the last thing and didn't finish. I do know what I wanted to say, though, is consider filing issues for the library report list. I don't know whether we want to do this, because I kind of know who's going to be stuck doing it. But maybe file issues for the extra stuff that's in that library report, in terms of like the fact that the examples need to be renamed, or that something needs to be included somewhere, on things that are good first issues, in terms of prepping for the PyCon sprints. It's easy to get to the issue, like if we actually have the whole list printed out, it's easy enough to get to the repo and figure out what to do without an issue being filed. So I'm putting that fairly low on the priority list since we do have a way to get there. But it would still be nice to be able to sort by Adafruit, good first issue, and have our list pop up and have everything there. So we'll see whether I get that far, or whether I can talk other people into helping, and maybe we can, at least the ones that are definitely good first issues, get filed on the library repos. But that is what I was typing for the last one, and didn't finish, and that is where I'm at.
Sweet. Thanks, Katney. You're, as always, doing a ton of work, so thank you for all that. All right, Maker Melissa.
Okay, last week I finished the mini color TFT plus joystick featherwing that I was working on, and got that into the featherwing library. I helped out with a character LCD pull request. I did a lot of Arduino display library cleanup, and this week I'm going to update the RA8875 CircuitPython driver with rounded rect hardware accelerated functions, and that's because that was just recently integrated into the Arduino one, and so I want to transfer that one over too. I want to add 480 by 80 size RA8875 display to both Arduino and CircuitPython. And I'll probably be doing lots more Arduino display stuff. And if I have time, I'd like to work on a Featherwing display IO guide.
Awesome. Keep on rocking.
Thanks.
Okay, Pink Vampire.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm not really a CircuitPython user, or not a user yet. But I don't know, I did a lot of other stuff that are not involved programming. I don't know if it's gonna fit into in this kind of conversation.
Yeah, just give us a quick overview of what you're working on.
Oh, so I work on tons of 3D printed parts for my milling machines, and limit switch holders, custom fit kind of stuff. I was experimenting with the gyroid infill. This is kind of thing, especially if it sometimes fails. You get the cool infill. Other than that, I'm working on a pretty big rebuild for a column that go on the lathe. So it's giving kind of milling capabilities on the lathe. And I need to manufacture some pretty bizarre parts that kind of switch the gear. It's kind of like a tiny fork that kind of move the gears inside the head. So I need to machine that. And it's going to be I hope pretty cool machining, because it's going to involve my C-axis on my CNC machine, and my high-speed spindle going to be mounted on the table. So it's going to be like a 4+1 5-axis machine, but not really a 5-axis machine, but it's 4-axis and one kind of position. So yeah, machining drive my life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the update. It's always fascinating for me to hear about it, because I have never done any of that. So thanks for the update.
All right.
All right, let's go to Sedacious.
Excuse me, I just want to quickly say thanks to Pink Vampire for sharing your machining journeys. I am a former machinist, and so love to hear about anything that involves metal spinning very fast and subtractive manufacturing. It's always very cool. But in terms of what I've been doing, last week I was working on getting out the BD3491FF to Osh Park. Should be back this week, and I ordered some extra parts so I can do just a batch of the breakouts to test them. I also did some more tweaks to the Arduino INA 260 driver, and then also got the LPS 35 up and running and started on the drivers for that. And then this week, I should, as I suggested, be able to bring up the BD3491 and get started on the drivers for that. I should probably today and tomorrow be finishing up the drivers for the LPS 35. In personal project-y type stuff, I'm going to probably work on a version 2 of the Internet of Mushrooms board that I threw together for my neighbor, and start using my airlift breakout for that so I can get my ESP32 back. And also I got from one of the people I have do with Patreon, I got a sweet little VGA 32 that's got like a resistor ladder and a VGA connector. And he's also written a library for it that has some pretty cool stuff it can do. So I'm going to try and get that going with my ESP32. And I have a long-term project for that we'll see how that goes. And then probably going to start some new boards or something. Yeah, not sure what, but we'll see what comes up.
Cool. All right.
That's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Sedacious. All right. Last but not least is Summersoft. Says, last week for Adabot, built a script for updating library information on CircuitPython.org's featured libraries page. It JSONifies a list of new/updated libraries as well as open issues. The only piece left depends on the answer to how to auto-update, commit versus PR, and then deploy. This week, for PDMin on the NRF52, continue tweaking the sync filter, and for Adabot, start mocking up some concepts for the GitHub API v4 implementation. So, awesome. Thank you, everybody. That was status updates, our 4th of 5 sections. Now we're going to do the last section, which we call lovingly call In the Weeds, which is just whatever discussion topics people have. This is the place that we can do it. We'll go down the list of questions that people have and kick it over to them. If you have other topics, feel free to mention them in the CircuitPython text channel or put them in the notes. We'll see them in both places and ask folks. So I'm going to kick it over to Deshipu, who has a bunch of questions to ask.
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed when I tried to download the firmware for microgame that it's not built. It's not being built there. There is a link to it, but there is no actual image on the server. So I wonder, what do I need to do to make it built? Because it would be super convenient for me to be able to just point people to that page.
Is it in the Travis YAML file?
I have no idea what is a Travis YAML file, where it is. So probably that.
Yeah, we don't like the list of boards that gets pushed to CircuitPython.org is just a listing of basically all the subfolders and boards plus the aliases. But we don't build every one of those folders. We only build the boards that are listed at the top of the Travis YAML at the root of the CircuitPython repo, which is this. I thought we had microgame there, though.
Okay, so a suggestion then for a change, maybe that would make sense to not include links to the boards that we don't build, because that's just confusing.
Yeah, well, then we'd have to actually check. Yeah.
I think we do build game.
I think it might have gotten dropped. I'm glancing at the list and I can't randomly spot it. Like Pew Pew's in there, but microgame is not.
I think microgame for a long time didn't make sense to build because it includes some custom frozen stuff to work. But now I have added that to the repository, so it makes sense now.
Okay, yeah. Maybe for the thing that builds the board info, we should actually validate that the artifacts are there. Yeah, if you could file an issue on CircuitPython.org and
certainly.
Yeah, we'll take a look at it. But the way to fix it is to get it in the Travis YAML that I just linked to.
So the next one is probably also to file issue to be filed in there to have a bootloader downloads in there. Now that we have updated bootloaders. Mm-hmm. And also related to updating the bootloaders,
can you explain the second one more first?
Yeah, so Dan mentioned that we have a bug fixed in bootloaders,
right?
For the UF2 bootloaders. So if we want people to be able to update their bootloaders easily, then maybe it would make sense to also make them downloadable from CircuitPython.org.
Right.
Basically. And that probably needs additional metadata for the board information to tell it which bootloader to use and so on.
Right.
So probably a lot of work to do that, but maybe worth it. So I will file an issue for that as well. And the last thing, I noticed that the PyBatch has a very cool bootloader now that makes use of the display. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if we could do the same thing for the Halloween.
Yeah, I assume so.
Or PyPortal.
I haven't
a loose idea.
Yeah, it's a good idea. I assume we plan on doing that, but the Microsoft folks did it for the Make Code Arcade work, and for a while we were pulling from our fork versus their fork, but Dan just did the work to merge those back together. So I think that includes all of the display work. So we should take a look at that and get that going. Yeah, it's a good idea. Okay, and I think that's it. Anybody have any final in the weeds questions?
I have a quick question. Mm-hmm. There is like a chat like that or a conversation like that that are not specifically related only to CircuitPython or but something that it's more general or something like that.
Like for a community chat?
Yeah, like community chat or something that it's more like making in general or something like that.
I think most of that happens during live streams that we run. So in particular, I think John Park is more on the making, like the physical making side, and he does his John Park's workshop at 1 p.m. Pacific on Thursdays usually. So there's a text chat that goes along with that in both. I think he looks at the live broadcast chat and in YouTube as well, I think. So
there is a place like a calendar that you can see all those kind of streams.
Yeah, we have a showtimes thing on Discord that can show it. Which
can you link to
that? Summersoft was typing. I thought, yeah, there we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that's all the regular showtimes that we have.
Yeah, I think it's my second time that I kind of saw this group kind of on Discord, and
yeah,
oh, cool.
Yeah, so we're normally at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern is when I guess we should put the CircuitPython Weekly there, but we don't. So yeah. Yeah, and if you have suggestions like that for Adafruit to run, feel free to always email support at Adafruit and suggest it. There's also, I know Hackaday does a lot of hack chats and stuff too. So if you haven't looked into Hackaday communities, I would recommend that as well.
Yeah, now I'm doing a lot of 3D printing and a lot of 3D designs.
Mm-hmm.
And interesting for you.
Yeah, and then for 3D printing, Noe and Pedro have their 3D hangouts in the morning, which I'm actually surprised is not. Oh yeah, it is on that's the first thing. The 11 a.m. Eastern time on Wednesdays. They cover all that sort of stuff. So if you haven't seen that, I would check it out as well.
All right, cool.
Thanks, Pink Vampire. Okay, and with that, I'm gonna call it. This has been the CircuitPython Weekly for April 15th, 2019. Hopefully everybody did their taxes in the US and has gotten those in. We meet every week on Mondays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, on our Discord channel, so that you can join through the URL adafru.it/discord. We're in the text chat all week, but we're only in the voice chat during that time typically. Everybody is welcome to join. We'd love to hear about projects that you're working on in addition to the core CircuitPython work as well. This meeting was recorded and will go up on the Adafruit YouTube, which is youtube.com/Adafruit, along with as a podcast on multiple podcast services around the globe. I think that's it. The recordings do have notes, so if you heard something or you want to go back to something, check out the notes, and that will get you close to in the video the different spots, and we'll see everybody next week. I have a feeling that 2 weeks from now, I think it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks from now, we won't have it because most of us will be at PyCon. So we'll have 2 more weeks, and then we'll have a week off because a lot of us will be in person at PyCon. So beware of that, and we'll let you know more about that as that gets closer. But just beware that I think when basically all of us are traveling, we have skipped it in the past. So yeah, that's it. Thank you everybody again for joining, and we'll talk to you all next week.
Thanks, everyone.